Well, we made it. The finale of this season of Six Rotations. Happy to be with you. He's Mick. I'm Daniel. And what a wild ride it was. We are out of Omaha. Glad the cold front didn't hit us too much. I think it's going to be like -5 degrees next week, Mick. But we had a phenomenal national semifinal, a great display of excellence in that championship match, a sellout crowd of almost 17,000 in the CHI Health Center. As always, we're brought to you by SNA Sports, better equipment for a better game. I got a little change in scenery going to see the family. The Omaha bug caught me just a bit, so apologies if I cough here and now. But Mick, walk me through your time. We had a great time with the Six Rotations fans, all of you that came up to us, all of you that tweeted at us. We're going to have a great episode here breaking down that championship, answering some of your questions. Mick, how about it? Your Texas Longhorns, 2022 national champions.
Yeah, they finally got the monkey off their back a bit, and they played very well in the finals, which is something they haven't been able to do. Eggleston, after a semifinals that she probably like to have back, really over 19 kills in the final 3 sets, six kills per set plus. I thought an outstanding performance, really a team loaded with talent. And the other 3 teams were really good. Don't get me wrong. I loved all the teams in the Final Four. But I tell you what, if you're a volleyball person and you don't come to this event, it's volleyball everything. With the AVCA convention, over 600 coaches, all the people you watch on TV and you hear about, players from phenoms to the best players in college volleyball. There's so much here that almost 5 days just wore me out. But I was going from 7 in the morning till 11 at night every day, and I still didn't get everything in. I talked to people, got to learn about new things. All the new pro leagues were in to show their wares. We did a portal showcase for kids in the portal. Had 110 coaches attend that. Believe that.
Wow, I believe it. Everyone wants to know. I've got a lot of questions about the portal, and of course Texas's impact on their newcomers as well.
Yeah, so I think just a plug for the whole event is not outrageous. It is something that if you're a volleyball person, you can go to any hotel, sit in any area, you'll find volleyball people that'll talk to you, and you can talk about anything volleyball.
From waiting at the baggage carousel when I first landed in Omaha, everyone wants to talk volleyball all the time. Very similar. I remember I covered the Women's College World Series back in 2017. Same kind of vibe where the center of the country, everybody loves it. Everyone wants to talk it. We had fans, people wanted to buy this polo. So go ahead and comment here on YouTube. We got some people who want some of the merch. So we'll try to help you guys out there. We'll see if we open up a store here for Six Row.
We can do that.
Well.
We're easy.
Hey, we can make it happen. How about this? Let's talk about the action for a little bit here. We can kind of open up about everything else in a little bit. But Maddie Skinner wins her 2nd national championship, both in Omaha. She won with Kentucky in the spring season. She wins with Texas. Logan Eggleston wins the most outstanding player, AVCA Player of the Year the night before. And then, of course, has 10 kills in the first set, Mick. And after the first 2 sets, it certainly felt like we were crowning a champion, but Louisville didn't go away. The Cardinals had a huge challenge at 21-20 in that 3rd set. It ended up switching it from 22-20 to 21-all on a no-touch at the net. And you got to give it to Big Red Nation. There were chants, go Big Red, even though Nebraska wasn't even in the Final Four. Rooting for, of course, Nebraska's alum in Danny Busboom Kelly, rooting for the red team to try to extend the match. But Texas, all the credit in the world. They battled 2 set points. They ran away with an ace to win it. And of course, it's the Nebraska transfer in Akana who gets the ace in front of all those Husker fans to win the match in front of 16,952. And it's the first sweep since 2019 when Stanford swept Wisconsin. So Mick, walk me through Logan Eggleston's performance, because she was subpar on Thursday to start the match. It was all Skinner. It was a little bit of Phillips late as well to pull away from San Diego, but the Toreros took that first set on Thursday. And I remember thinking, if Eggleston doesn't come out hair on fire on Saturday, this could be a long night. She came out 10 kills, 1 error in the first set.
Yeah, I just thought San Diego had to make a choice whether they're going to try to defend Eggleston or they're going to try to defend Skinner. They chose Eggleston and they slowed her down, but Skinner stepped up. So that's really my take on that first night. I'd give San Diego credit. I think Logan did a good job, but she was up against a pretty nice block. They optioned down a bunch of times on her. They slowed her down. They stayed in the match, but their own errors killed them. And that's a kind of pressure that Texas puts on the opponents. So all in all, I thought all 4 teams really played at an extremely high level. Is that, in your opinion, what's going to happen now with this transfer portal thing, that the top teams are going to be really good in the finals from now on?
I hope so. I mean, what we're learning is you don't have to be a brand name team to get big name transfers. And I hope that's the big response coming out of this. Why can't Mac Pedraza go to a West Coast Conference team, right? Why can't Kylie Murr go play for the MAC League, right? You know, she loves that area of the country. You never know, right? You see Gabby Blossom and Blackwell and Edwards all go to USD and transform them into a juggernaut this season. We saw this we talked about it last week, right? This was the fewest amount of teams in the Final Four, fewest amount of losses since 2000. Something tells me we might get less than 7 losses next year if we have a certain amount of, now some people might call it lack of parity. I'm not quite sure. I think there was a good amount of parity in the league this year. Just look at the top 25 poll every week. We had a lot of shakeups. We didn't know whether Minnesota was going to be elite. Ohio State could have jumped in anywhere. Oregon made a late push. I think the question that you're asking is a good one, because instead of looking at the negatives of the NIL and the transfers, there's no reason to do that. Why can't we just focus on the positives, which is a little bit more towards, hey, why can't the best teams be in the Final Four every year? And why can't the best players play for a championship? It doesn't seem fair to the smaller teams, but then just become a bigger team, right? We're seeing it at every sport, in every college level, the jump up in college football and basketball from some of these mid-majors to the higher levels. And of course, the shakeup in conferences, Mick, is going to be big, because you're going to have teams like BYU and UCF now jump into the Big 12, and that could change things. Now, I don't love seeing the jumping around if it's a situation like Ohio State has had. And I talked a little bit to Jen Flynn Oldenburg and, of course, with Mac at the All-American banquet. And it was happy. They were amicable. It wasn't a Kathy, Nebraska situation. It was a little bit more of a, hey, we don't have a scholarship for you. Go try to win somewhere else. And they were hugging when Pedraza got her All-American plaque from Annie Drews and Jay Foe was there. I don't know. It doesn't feel like we need to spin a villain narrative like every other sport does with the transfer portal. Why can't we just enjoy it and let the best players play at the best teams sometimes?
I'm glad I'm not coaching.
So now let's get into that, because let's talk about the coaching battle on Saturday night, because things got a little interesting. First set, UT hits 533, but Louisville hit over 400 for most of that set. There was that one point when Coach Elliott stalled for a good while, and you heard the fans start to get it. What's your opinion on that? Because, of course, Chaussee was serving. It was late in the set. It was tight. She served an error after a 4-minute delay or 3-minute delay that Elliott, and then when Danny Busboom Kelly kind of did the same thing, she got a yellow card for it. So what was your opinion there?
Well, I think coaches take what you give them, and the referees give them too much. You know, you give an explanation. That's all it takes. And you have to have the coach. I mean, obviously, Jared did a great job of getting a timeout and not getting charged for it. That took almost 1 minute and 20 seconds. Internationally, you only get a 30-second timeout, and he got 2 international timeouts just with a banner back and forth with the down official. I felt the officials could have done better in this one from both sides, the down official as well as the up official. They're trying to work with the coaches and not antagonize them, but there were definitely some officials getting involved in the match when I didn't think they should have, and they should have gotten the play going forward faster than they did. And to penalize one coach for standing up and not penalizing the other coach, you got to be really careful about that, because coaches pay attention. They keep track and they know the score with the officials as well as on the scoreboard. So they'll take advantage if you allow them to, because that's their job to protect their team. But quite honestly, that was uneven, I think, in my opinion, and probably unnecessary. So I like to see the game flow. I like to see the referees treat the players real positively, and I like to have the game flow. Even some double contact calls, I would let those go, because it stops the game, it slows the game down, it intimidates the players, and they're playing for the championship. Let them win it or lose it. Don't get involved.
So that brings us to Thursday again. And now we can talk about that Louisville-Pitt duel, which was just unreal. And Elena Scott, the libero for Louisville, she had 5 aces against Oregon in the regional final. Then she does it again with 5 aces, a career high 28 digs in that interconference duel. Mick, were there any notes that you specifically took from that match? Of course, the first ACC team to make the national championship. How about 6 blocks in that 5th set, 5 of them in a row, and of course the 8-0 run that Louisville went on. But taking away that 5th set, it was a really fun match through 4. Really late in the night, though.
Yeah, and you know, you're always worried about the 5th set, because a shorter number of points. If anybody gets a run, you know you're in trouble. And the short runs of 3 points, like I've been in that situation, up 8-2 and still tied at 12. And sometimes your team relaxes when you get ahead. Guess what? Louisville didn't relax. They kept it coming. And I thought Pittsburgh lost their patience, tried to bomb everything instead of keeping the ball in play and using their block and their defense. But that happens once in a while, and you just have to hold on and hope it doesn't happen to you. I felt badly for Pittsburgh, but I thought Louisville did it right. They put the best server back there to start that 5th set, and they did not let Pittsburgh get out of that rotation for a long time. So hats off to Louisville. Great match up until that point.
Yeah, DeBeer was so good too. She had a huge swing, and in the late portions of the first set, Louisville won that first set. Then Pittsburgh came out storming in the second set. They were up 21-17, but DeBeer and her service runs were great. DeBeer pulled Louisville back within 1 at 21-20. Pittsburgh would stretch it out to 23-21. However, DeBeer and Chaussee got back within 1, but Serena Gray would not be denied at the end of that second set. And right then and there, you had the feeling it wasn't quite the crowd that San Diego and Texas brought into the CHI Health Center. There were a lot of Torero fans. We disagreed on this. I talked to some other people. There's a consensus that there was more blue than orange on Thursday night.
So I'll take a position on this. There were more blue in the blue section than there were orange in the orange section, but there were a lot more orange spread around the arena. Okay. Like they had bought their tickets earlier and had gotten them in other places other than the cheering sections for each team. And that's what I meant when I said to you, I think there are more Texas fans here. But as I looked, I got a higher seat. I could see around the arena that there were orange and white all around different places, just not grouped together. I liked the way the Toreros came in and filled up their section and really made it a collegiate event with their energy. And their athletic director, Bill McGillis, is just wonderful about leading the charge. He had the president of the university there. He had everybody there. And I think that's going to help build their program even higher. I'd like to see them, for the quality of teams that Jen has had down there, they ought to fill that arena every night. And they only fill it on the important nights. You know, San Diego's a little laid back, but those people need to come and support that team every night.
There you go. You never know. I mean, there's a West Coast push, and I hope that it can continue. Of course, with the WCC having those teams in, right, with LMU getting the bump up this year. Of course, San Diego, and then we always have Pepperdine and BYU being recognized. You got to get fans against Gonzaga and Pacific, and those are teams that made noise this year, right? Each of those subpar teams in the conference had an upset win in Gonzaga and Pacific. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Let's move to the fourth
I
set.
think you can do that in a lot of conferences. I think you can do that in the Sun Belt Conference. I think you can do that in the MAC Conference. I think there are just a ton of conferences out there that can play at this level with 6 or 7 players. I mean, they can get enough arms in there. There are enough kids out there playing now that are good. I was shocked that we had 13 or 14 kids show up for the portal showcase and 110 coaches. They're all looking for those kids. I mean, players, there are coaches dying to get you on their teams and get into this battle. I'm glad the committee seated 32. Pretty soon we're going to have to look at 64 because, you know, they're going to have to be play-ins. People are putting a lot of money into the sport. The volleyball is not leveled out, that we keep getting more players.
How fun would a little play-in be, right? You throw a couple of these final last 4 out teams and you give them a chance, maybe a team that goes far in the NIVC, you know, stuff like that would be a lot of fun.
How about Jason Kennedy winning the NIVC?
Yeah, Boston College, I was about to say. Good for them. Absolutely. So the ACC, phenomenal showcase, but I want to go back to this match, all right? Because what a job by Louisville. They were down 3-0 in 4 of the 5 sets. So it was right off the bat, punched in the face by Louisville. Pittsburgh's down 2-1. The Cardinals are up 16-10, and you get the vibe in the arena that everyone's just like, all right, this is it, right? Like Louisville, they're going to the championship. Pittsburgh did their due. It's wrapping up, and then a service error by Scott. And service errors tended to cost these teams this weekend, as they usually do. And then Serena Gray goes on a little run. Iko Jones makes a service error, and Bizzario gives Pittsburgh a tie match at 17. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I thought the serving errors were absolutely critical. And you know, this is something I've never done when I was coaching, but now that I'm watching more and coaching less, I'm thinking, is there a time you call it off and position serve, meaning just put the ball at spots,
get it in,
and load up on the hitters and let the other team earn the point rather than you giving them the point. Men's volleyball, I absolutely think we're doing the wrong thing by making all these serving errors. But this was aggressive serving by all 4 teams, and errors made a big impression at certain times in the match.
Well, this was a night that felt like a men's volleyball atmosphere because there weren't a lot of crazy rallies. It was a lot of quick side outs or quick attack errors. And it happened here, 17 all. Louisville goes on a little run, a couple key blocks by Tillman, Lotharo, Tillman again, 2017 Louisville. Again, it looks like, all right, we're going to get to go home. It's almost midnight. Time to go to bed. No, Pittsburgh battles back. A big ball handling error makes it 21-20 on Lotharo. But even then, Bizzario hits it out. It's 22-20. And then the Fairbanks service run from 22-20 Louisville. Pittsburgh goes on the 5-0 run. Serena Gray adds a couple kills. And then the big block by Gray to finish the set. We know what happened in the 5th. But I just wanted to give due to that 4th set because that was the pinnacle of the excitement for me on that Thursday.
And, you know, Pittsburgh coach had so many coaching things that he had to consider. I mean, you have to give him a whole lot of credit because he had different options of where to start. He had different times to sub. He had timeout calls. Yep. I mean, if you want to see coaches really going through their options, I mean, it was like he should have had his play sheet for an NFL player and looking down there, is this the one? Is this the time? How about this matchup? I mean, there were some fun things for coaches to watch there.
So PK Kong finishes with 10 blocks. She had the big one at 8-0 that kind of put things not to bed, but it felt like 7-0. You never know, something crazy might happen. But Kong was huge. And then Tillman, who had a forgettable match overall, was really key late in that 5th set. Of course, she had the match-winning kill at 14-2. But then we move on and we go into a couple of our questions here. And Lida wants to know how you feel about neither libero being on the all-tournament team, because it certainly felt, of course, Scott didn't have the biggest match on Saturday night, but an all-tournament team or an all-championship team to not have Zoe Fleck on it was kind of weird.
Well, there's a lot of ways to feel about that. I've heard the Texas fans say that they wanted their libero on the team, but honestly, liberos don't score points. And when you've got offenses going back and forth like this, it's hard not to recognize their contributions because they're the people that are putting it down. I love the liberos. I'd have 4 on there if it were me, probably. But honestly, I think the committee was really challenged this time to get the 6 best people on that, or 7 best people on that, and I think they did a pretty good job. I'm okay with that, although people in Texas want Fleck. Everybody wants the top libero. They've followed them all year and sometimes 4 years to see how well they performed. You count on them for serve receive. You count on them for those great plays. They're throwing their bodies all over. Maybe you just have to have that position.
Just make it so that there's at least one. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. How about Halter too? Emma Halter was unreal on Thursday against San Diego.
I
she
thought
really felt like the X
Halter
factor.
was not only did she pass well, she passed perfect. I mean, the setter wasn't even having to move. I thought she was going to have a Coke and read the paper before the ball got there. I mean, holy cow. She'll be the libero next year, I believe.
Deservingly.
Absolutely. They don't lose anything from the passing standpoint. The kid was great.
So here's a question from Set Point, another volleyball show. And they announced the Big West is going to have a conference tournament next year, which is interesting. So between the teams that don't have a conference tournament mix, Pac-12, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC, American, and West Coast Conference, what conferences would benefit the most from having one?
Well, the conferences that want more than one team in the tournament would benefit. In fact, that's the reason in basketball, Pac-12 has a tournament. Some other teams have a tournament because very seldom does the best team win the tournament, which gets the tournament team automatically in and a high seed for the next 2 or 3. But we don't have enough days unless we're going to extend the season. We love those first 4 weeks, right?
You have to cut into your season if you want to have a conference.
Oh yeah, and only those people that don't have enough teams to have an extended like 20 match or 22 match conference schedule. If they have a 16 match conference schedule, absolutely they need to have a tournament. But it's difficult. I'm hoping this happens. So Daniel, I'm hoping we start the season earlier.
But the way that school starts, it's hard to do that now for some, because there's already some schools, Mick, in the West Coast that they start the season before students even show up on campus.
It hasn't hurt anybody. It hasn't hurt UCLA. It hasn't hurt Stanford. They've all been good all that time, and the people following them are still there. The only people that don't show up are the students, and the college volleyball players are always in school the second session of summer session anyway, because they're training for the season. So I think we could start it earlier. And what I'd like to see is the first round of the conferences played, and then a week or so where they could schedule from different conferences and then do the second round. The players like that idea because it gives them a fresh breath of air of seeing some teams they haven't seen. It gives television a chance to really see some great matchups. It gives the committee a chance to look at teams playing outside their conference for better selection. And all we have to do is add a week or 2 to the season so we can get that week in the middle and then go on. I think that might be something that people need to consider.
Well, here's the answer that I've gotten from people that have power in the matters of some of these conferences. The conference that benefits the most from having a conference tournament is one that will automatically have a team in no matter what. So you can't have, and the Big West is going to have that issue because if Hawaii doesn't have a great season, there may only be that one bid conference. And if you have, I don't know, UC San Diego stealing that bid, then Hawaii or Santa Barbara, Cal Poly, they may get left home after having a 17-1 conference season, but because they had such a bad non-conference season, the RPI cost them. Now, Hawaii ended up having a good RPI this year, so that probably would have been a 2-bid conference if the Big West had a tournament. A conference like the West Coast Conference would be perfect for this because you're already going to have 2 or 3 teams get the at-large. So then you want to open it up and let the Cinderella story potentially happen. American is another potential opportunity because you have Houston and UCF and then you could open it up to a SMU or
Same
a
as the Big
Wichita
East.
State or something like that.
The Big East also with the Marquette and Creighton.
Correct. That'd be your perfect example. But it doesn't benefit a conference like the Big Ten, because when I talk to Big Ten coaches, realistically, and when you break things down and you want to talk about fun, crazy upsets and stuff, but the teams that are making the tournament out of the Big Ten, right? You say there's 6 or 7 every year. Those teams are going to win. One of those teams are going to win the conference tournament every year. You're not going to, Maryland could have one cool upset in the tournament, but they're not going to beat 4 top 10 teams en route in 4 days. And it's just going to wear down these players. And that's the answer I've gotten from Big Ten coaches and, people that are higher powered than us, and why there's not a Big Ten, why there's not an SEC tournament for volleyball. That's just the answer that seems to come up, because it's just a sport that you don't see. 3 wins in 3 days is just not going to happen for an Indiana.
And it is too many tournaments back to back. That's why I like better of splitting the conference in half with an open weekend where you could schedule. In fact, some conferences have talked about this. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 actually had played around with the idea of having a week in between where the first place teams would play each other, the second place teams would play each other, the third place teams would play each other in the middle of the season, just to get some interconference stuff going. Now, after UCLA and SC leaving, they probably won't be talking to each other about that. But, there's some other ways to do that we could get everybody involved. And I think it's a refresher for the kids. I think the players like the idea because they just get tired of this conference thing when you do double round robin. Okay. So what are you going to do in the SEC though, when Vanderbilt comes on? Let's say you've got 16 teams. You can't play 32 home and home. You play home and home in your half of the division, or do you play just a single round robin and have a tournament? There's another way to do the SEC. So it's pretty interesting.
The SEC's got a really fun hypothetical because, of course, you've got Kentucky and they're going to stay really good. You've got Florida and they're going to stay really good. And you've got Texas. And that's where, like, the addition of Oklahoma as well, we'll see if they can rise in the ranks. But the Texas, Kentucky, Florida conversation in the SEC, it's another thing where, is there a team, Nick, that's going to beat 2 of those 3 teams back-to-back nights in the tournament that's not going to make the tournament anyways? Probably not. So what's the big benefit to forcing these teenagers and 20 and 21 and 22-year-olds to play 3 days in a row and then turn around 4 days later and get on a plane and then go play in the NCAA tournament? It just doesn't make that much logistical sense. It would be great for the fans, but once again, it just doesn't feel realistic for some of these power teams to have tournaments.
Well, the only thing we can compare it to is I've watched the Pac-12 play 4 matches in a row in basketball. Right. And then go to the basketball tournament. And I would think they'd just be stepping on their tongues because they don't
like it. I can tell you that.
No, but that's the only way they get in the money, because there's so much money in that. Did you happen to see that somebody suggested that if they took the women's volleyball now and didn't do it as a NC2A event, but NC2A sold it, they could make an awful lot of money on this event, selling it to high priority people like they do the basketball, they do some of the other conferences separately. They said volleyball will go now. And with all these people putting money into these new pro leagues that are supposed to be starting, I think people have figured this out, that volleyball is going to be here to stay. So you want to watch what's going to happen, especially with this new NC2A president coming in, because he's supposed to be a communicator and a bridge builder, something that the last guy was not.
Well, I am excited. At the time that we are recording this, we don't have the Nielsen ratings. I'm very curious. Of course, we had over 1 million watching the championship last year. It's a bummer they had to bump it to ESPN2. It should have been on ABC on Saturday night. Maybe by next season, they'll get that figured out. They'll be able to put it on because they had the women's championship for basketball on ABC. They had the softball championship in the Women's College World Series on ABC. So hopefully they can make that bump. That would probably double the viewership for 2023. It's in Tampa, folks. Maybe start to look at some flights in December, that second weekend. I think it's like the 13th to the 16th in Tampa.
You don't
Hotels
want to
can get
miss this.
booked.
I get my ticket right now down there and then wait for the NC2A to announce. You know, the NC2A does a fanfare, as you and I know, because we worked it this year. It doubled in size of people that want to get more insider information. You know, I got my insider information just by riding from the airport with the Uber driver. He gave me all the stats for each Nebraska player
I love
for
it.
the whole season. So I don't know if Tampa's going to be that on fire, but I'll tell you what, the interest out there is enough that television better figure it out because they're losing some money.
They are, but luckily the two national semifinals, both on ESPN, I'm sure they both had gangbuster reviews. But yes, Mick and I, we each hosted the NCAA fan experience. And so for next year, if you want to try to put a reminder, On Location is the name of the company that puts together these fan experiences. You buy a ticket, it's all inclusive for the game, the all you can eat session. And then of course, you get maybe potentially Mick and I again interviewing. I had Lauren Stivrins, Karch Karai, and Salima Rockwell. Mick got to talk to Annie Drews, Coach Bernthal
wow.
Booth, and then the godmothers of volleyball. How'd that go?
Oh, it was unbelievable. Annie Drews is one heck of an interview and a great role model for our young ladies out there that are playing our sport. And the godmothers were really good. They got into it. I mean, Ruth Nelson, Joan Powell, just really was some special stuff. I really had a good time. And Kirsten Booth had some really interesting observations. She's the incoming president for the ABCA now, and she gave some good focus. Her focus is television, incidentally. She's going to work in her presidency to get this television going right and getting it maxed out for our athletes and our schools. So yeah, I think we had six groups of people that were pretty darn awesome to interview. You didn't have to do much because they took the mic and ran with it. It was pretty good.
Yeah, we had a great time. Karch was awesome to chat with as well. And then everybody loves Lauren Stivrins, and she was phenomenal. Unfortunately, she tore her ACL in the Athletes Unlimited League. But now with all of this advent, February 24 is that league that Joe Burrow just became a founding partner in, the Real Pro Volleyball Federation. And then you've got the League One. That's the one that Kevin Durant has the rumors around. So I like having competition. People's asked me, are there too many new pro leagues in America? There's no such thing, in my opinion. You want as many as possible, because if you can have that, it's survival of the fittest. One of them is going to win out. And then that one we can all agree that that's the one, right? That's the league. So I think that's going to be a good way. I want to finish this with one more thank you to all of the fans. We had a great amount of people coming up to us all week long in Omaha, said, we watch your show. We love the show. We love Mick. It's so great. So it means the world to us that we started this. Mick and I met for the first time, and that was fantastic. Got to meet Carrie. It was a lot of fun. And so we're going to have a great off season here, get everything together. We are really excited for August as well. Mick, you have any final thoughts here? I know this is your platform. Texas won the championship. This is your moment here. Your final words from 2022.
Well, now I get to sit under 4 banners instead of 3 at my season tickets, so that's good. But this is over for this year, and now we're thinking about next year. It's the way coaches think too. You can't celebrate this. Last night they lit the tower orange, which is a big deal. They have a big tower center of campus. You light that thing orange, and you're endeared for life. We've lit it a couple times. Jarrett's lit it a couple times now. And so that's really special. But on to the next year, on to the next focus. If you're going to sit back and celebrate this, you're going to get left behind, because John Cook's not sitting back. Kelly Sheffield's not sitting back. None of these coaches are sitting back. They're all racing here to get thee kids that are in the portal right now, to get them on their rosters, to think about the spring, get going in the summer. And, we're going to get one breath, and we're going to be back at it.
Some big names. Florida's Merritt Beeson, the 6th rotation right side.
Yes,
Jay Demps from Wisconsin is in the portal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be big. And we didn't talk at all about the now AVCA president in Keegan Cook. He accepted the job at Minnesota. He told me it was a 12-hour stretch where he got a call, he got a flight. He was in Minneapolis before he noticed. There were pictures. It was confirmed. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's how quick it all goes. And I can't be more excited for him. He's a great person and a fantastic coach. And I'm really excited to see maybe Minnesota goes after one of those Ohio State transfers. Who knows?
I had a conversation with Keegan. My wife was there, and I said, Keegan, you got to keep the 6,000 fans happy. Kerry was saying to him, "Oh, this is going to be great." He says, "I really like your wife's outlook a lot better than yours."
Well, that's going to wrap things up here. Thank you, fans, for tuning in, tweeting at us, commenting, keep hitting us with ideas for next season. Any thoughts? Of course, we love all of the trolls as well. So let me know anything that we messed up on. Of course, as Texas wins their third NCAA championship, their fourth national volleyball championship. Everyone made sure to make that very clear that the first one in the early 80s was an NIAW or something like that championship.
AIAW.
Sorry, AIAW. See,
but it was a legitimate championship because we had played USC in that year and beaten USC. So when USC won the first NC2A championship, I called Chuck and said, we're mythical champs, right?
It's great. Well, now they can stamp it. I'm happy. Logan Eggleston and Lionel Messi both finally get their championship on the same weekend. Two fantastic players in their each own sport. And that was great. And of course, we got to keep this stretch going because we talked to Logan this year. That means next year we got to try to find someone on a player on a team that's going to win the championship to try to keep the streak rolling. Wisconsin the year before, Texas this year. Who will win in Tampa? Give us your predictions. Why not? Let's start predictions.
Who is the favorite, incidentally? Who's your favorite for next year?
That's a great question. Let's see if we could vamp for 30 seconds here and I can come up with a favorite. I'll tell you what. It certainly feels. What about you? You go first. Let me think.
I think the Burnt Orange can repeat.
Of course you do. Why not?
But no, not because I'm rooting.
No, I know.
I just look at the talent they've got. I mean, they got people that didn't play this year that I would start in a heartbeat and expect to go to the Final Four. So I don't know what these other schools are going to do. We want to see if Texas can keep the talent because we haven't heard of anybody going into the portal yet. That's a major.
Well, of course, Eggleston and O'Neal. They'll have to.
O'Neal's back.
O'Neal
has announced she's coming back. Yeah, that's why I say there's battles, and they've got battles on the right side. Molly Phillips is the unsung hero for that team. Never gets any publicity, and yet you look at her, and every night she performs. So they've got another, and Skinner is the best on the right side. If you see her hit on the right side, she's just a beast. And yet they keep playing her left. So what's going to happen there? You don't know, but some of these other teams are coming. And so will Stanford get better? I
was going to say, I'm going to give you my final four for next year. Instead of picking one champion, I'll give you my final four. I'm going to go Texas, Stanford, Nebraska, Minnesota. Something about Keegan Cook in his first year, right? He wins it as a 27-year-old. He wins the Pac-12 in Washington. We'll see how his first year goes in Minnesota. So that's my final four. You got a quick other three teams to go with Texas?
I believe your phone's ringing. That's Kelly Sheffield on the phone and wants to talk to you.
There's something about Wisconsin. I like to reverse jinx him. I love Kelly, but fans know that if I pick against Wisconsin, maybe you guys will do well. That's the goal.
And the other phone over there is Dave Shondell calling you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, if Kylie Murr goes back home and plays for Purdue, that's going to certainly throw some fun into it. They got a huge right side named Emily coming in as well. Should be fun. But let's wrap things up here, Mick. Thank you, fans, so much for joining us. That'll wrap up our final episode. He's Mick. I'm Daniel. We'll talk to you next year. This is Six Rotations.